Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favourite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside, I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders drop, maybe pull the covers up a bit higher, and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Highclere Hall, in the rolling Hertfordshire countryside, was the perfect stage for tragedy in the autumn of 1937. Elegant Art Deco lines met Old English stone, every guest playing their refined role amid crystal chandeliers and hothouse lilies. Then Sir Reginald Harrington, the wealthy industrialist and host, was found dead in the locked library, cyanide in his brandy glass. So the room heavy with cigar smoke and the faint trace of his wife's Worth perfume. Police saw suicide, a man ruined by secret debts, alone with his despair. But Hercule Poirot saw a performance. Someone in this theatre of wealth was playing the role of innocent, the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Chapter 1. The stage is set. Highclere Hall stood as the perfect stage for tragedy on that crisp autumn evening in 1937. Its Art Deco elegance blended seamlessly with the old stone walls, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over polished mahogany tables and velvet curtains that framed tall windows. The air carried the rich scents of hothouse lilies, expensive Worth perfume, lingering Cuban cigar smoke, and fresh furniture wax. Footsteps echoed softly on the parquet floor as the household stirred with uneasy energy, as Sir Reginald Harrington was discovered in the locked library shortly after midnight. He slumped in his leather armchair, a half-empty brandy glass beside him on the side table. The faint bitter almond scent of cyanide mingled with the leather bindings and wood smoke from the dying fire. The grandfather clock chimed once, its deep tone cutting through the silence. The door had been locked from the inside, the key resting neatly on the desk. At first glance, it appeared a clear case of suicide. The local police inspector arrived quickly, his boots leaving faint marks on the polished floor. "Look straight forward," he muttered, noting the debts Sir Reginald had accumulated in recent months. Business troubles, arguments with the family. He must have taken the cyanide from the doctor's bag and ended it all alone. Yet something in the neat arrangement of the scene felt too deliberate, like a carefully set prop. Hercule Poirot stepped from his motorcar onto the gravel drive, the chill night air nipping at his face. He drew himself up to his full modest height and adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he surveyed the grand entrance. "This, mon ami," he said to the inspector, "is no simple tragedy. It is a performance, staged with care. Hercule Poirot has come to direct the truth." Inside the drawing room, the cast of characters had already assembled. Lady Evelyn Harrington sat upon a silk-upholstered chaise longue, her silk evening gown rustling softly with each careful movement. She dabbed at her eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief, shoulders shaking in what appeared to be grief. The heavy floral notes of her Worth perfume filled the space around her. "Reginald was so despondent lately," she performed, voice trembling just enough. The financial losses weighed heavily upon him. He spoke of ending everything. Observe this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch it? Her handkerchief remains perfectly dry. No mascara runs. The grief, it is technically flawless. Young Gerald Harrington paced near the French windows, his rough tweed jacket contrasting sharply with the room's refinement. The cold terrace air seeped in as he opened a window briefly, bringing the scent of damp earth. "Father and I argued yesterday about money," he admitted, hands steady despite his words. But I never imagined he would do this." His eyes avoided the others. Footsteps measured on the parquet. Miss Clara Langley, the private secretary, stood by the tall bookcases, her fingers nervously twisting a pair of soft kid gloves. Strong continental coffee had been served on silver trays, its rich aroma cutting through the tension. "I was with Sir Reginald until 10:30, she said helpfully. "He was finishing letters. The door was locked when I left." Her voice stayed level, yet her gaze flickered toward Dr. Crow. Dr. Alistair Crow warmed his hands by the crackling fire, the flames casting dancing shadows across his face. His sandalwood cologne mixed with the wood smoke and furniture wax. "As the family physician, I can confirm the presence of cyanide," he stated calmly. "It acts swiftly and without much pain. He likely took it after we all retired." He glanced occasionally at Lady Evelyn, his professional detachment almost convincing. Captain Victor Langford leaned against the marble mantelpiece, a crystal glass of sweet liqueur untouched in his hand. His military bearing remained rigid. "We played bridge in this very room until nearly midnight," he recounted. "Reginald excused himself around 11:30. None of us saw anything unusual." His wife, Mrs. Beatrice Langford, nodded in agreement, her velvet gown catching the tinkling light from the chandelier. Mrs. Langford sipped the remains of icy champagne, the cork pop from the previous evening still echoing in memory. "Reginald was the heart of every gathering," she added, forcing a small laugh. "Who could possibly wish him harm?" Her perfume, a light Chanel, blended with the lilies on the table. Poirot moved among them like a master director studying his troupe. He tilted his egg-shaped head thoughtfully and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "You watch with Poirot, non?" He addressed the invisible audience. "You see how this one's hands remain steady, how another's eyes avoid contact. The careful observer will notice these small details." Lady Evelyn's performance of grief continued, technically perfect, yet lacking genuine moisture in the eyes. Gerald's pacing seemed measured, as if rehearsed for the stage. Clara's helpfulness carried an edge of something sharper. Dr. Crow's calm masked an undercurrent of tension. The Langfords' mutual confirmations flowed too smoothly. The tension rose in the warm drawing room, fire warmth contrasting the chill night air drifting from the terrace. Rain began to patter gently against the windows, a soft accompaniment to the distant sound of a piano playing a melancholy tune from another room. Champagne glasses from the previous night's gathering still stood on side tables, their crystal surfaces catching the light. Ask yourself, why does she avoid his eyes when the alibis are discussed? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence? This actor plays grief, but observe the eyes. Where is the moisture? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Poirot arranged a few scattered objects on a nearby table symmetrically, his movements precise and deliberate. "Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre," he murmured. "The psychology, it is everything. We approach the first act. Someone will soon forget their lines." The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the players. The morning room at Highclere Hall became the new stage for formal interviews as pale autumn light filtered through tall windows. Crisp linen napkins lay folded on the sideboard beside silver trays of strong continental coffee, its rich aroma cutting through the lingering cigar smoke trapped in the velvet curtains. Poirot sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, tilting his egg-shaped head as each suspect entered one by one, their footsteps soft on the thick carpet. Lady Evelyn Harrington entered first, her silk gown rustling gently. The scent of her Worth perfume drifted ahead of her like a floral curtain. She took her seat with composed grace and dabbed at her eyes with a fresh linen handkerchief. "I retired to my room shortly after 11 with a terrible headache," she performed, voice soft and trembling. "Reginald insisted on staying to finish some urgent papers. We had exchanged words about the business losses, but nothing more. Observe this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch how her shoulders shake without real tears falling? Too perfect. Truth does not rehearse." Young Gerald Harrington followed, still wearing his rough tweed jacket that carried the faint smell of outdoor wood smoke from an early walk on the cold terrace. He accepted a cup of hot coffee, hands steady as he stirred it. "I was in my bedroom reading until well after 1 o'clock, he stated. "I heard nothing unusual. Father and I argued yesterday. Yes, but that was all." His eyes avoided Poirot's gaze, footsteps measured when he shifted in his chair. Miss Clara Langley arrived next, carrying a small notebook, her soft kid gloves neatly folded in her lap. The crystal chandelier above tinkled faintly as a maid passed in the corridor. "I typed letters for Sir Reginald until 10:30, she offered helpfully. He seemed preoccupied, but not desperate. The library door was locked from inside when I left him. Her voice remained level, yet her fingers twisted the gloves when questions turned to the doctor. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this one's hands betray slight nervousness while her words stay so calm. Ask yourself, why does she avoid the doctor's eyes when alibis overlap?" Dr. Alistair Crowe entered with professional confidence, on his sandalwood cologne mixing with the furniture wax scenting the room. He warmed his hands briefly by the small fire crackling in the grate before sitting. "As the family physician, I examined the body this morning," he explained. "Cyanide acts very quickly. He must have taken it impulsively after we retired. My medical bag was left in the hall. Anyone could have accessed it." His performance of detached expertise held firm, but a quick glance toward Lady Evelyn revealed a deeper connection. The careful observer, and you are becoming careful, mon ami, will notice how the doctor's calm carries an undercurrent of fear. Consider the psychology. What role does this man need to play to protect more than just his reputation? Captain Victor Langford strode in with military precision, his boots clicking sharply on the parquet before he took his seat. A crystal glass of water stood untouched before him. "We played bridge in the drawing room until nearly midnight," he recounted firmly. "Reginald excused himself around 11:30. Beatrice and I went straight to our room. None of us saw anything amiss." His wife, Mrs. Beatrice Langford, confirmed the account with a nod, her velvet gown rustling softly as she sat beside him. Mrs. Langford added the light floral notes of Chanel perfume to the air and sipped a small glass of sweet liqueur to steady her nerves. "Reginald was always the life of the party," she said, forcing a smile. "Talk of suicide seems so unlike him, yet the debts were mounting. We all adored him." Their stories aligned too neatly, like lines from a shared script. Poirot leaned forward and making an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The alibis, they fit together like pieces of a well-rehearsed play," he observed. "Every actor accounts for the others, yet no one truly watched the victim after 11:30. The bridge game, the locked door, the sudden retirement, each performance supports the next. Watch this carefully. This actor plays loyalty, but observe the quick glances between husband and wife. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform such perfect innocence? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon." Lady Evelyn's widow role continued with technical precision, but the dry handkerchief told its own tale. Gerald's steady hands during talk of inheritance suggested calculation rather than raw shock. Clara's helpful secretary act masked possible resentment over long hours and modest pay. Dr. Crowe's medical certainty wavered slightly when pressed on the exact timing of his bag's availability. The Langfords' mutual confirmation flowed smoothly, yet their synchronized alibis felt scripted under the warm light of the morning room. Rain pattered softly against the windows, mixing with the distant chime of the grandfather clock and the faint rustle of silk as someone shifted uncomfortably. The hot coffee cooled untouched in several cups, its aroma fading. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged the pens on the table symmetrically. "Hercule Poirot sees behind the masks," he murmured. "These performances, they are convincing to the casual eye. But truth does not need such rehearsal. We have entered the players. Now we watch who forgets their lines." Every actor had taken their mark, but who played truth and who performed lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. Deeper investigation unfolded that afternoon across the elegant rooms of Highclere Hall. Poirot directed discreet searches of bedrooms and the library, while the rain continued its soft patter against the windows. A half-burned letter fragment was discovered in the library fireplace grate, its edges curled from the dying embers, carrying faint traces of wood smoke and the bitter scent of charred paper. The words hinted at serious financial betrayal involving Captain Langford's business dealings with Sir Reginald. The first mask slipped during a private confrontation with young Gerald in the morning room. Confronted with evidence of his heavy gambling debts, the heir's composed performance cracked. His hands trembled visibly as he reached for a cigarette, voice rising in sudden defense. "I didn't need to kill father. I inherit everything anyway." The dutiful son role faltered, revealing raw resentment beneath the surface. The director method, the performance. Gerald weeps for his lost father, shoulders shaking appropriately in the warm drawing room while dabbing at his eyes with a crisp linen handkerchief. The tell. But observe, the tears remain absent, his voice stays controlled, and he reaches for his cigarette case with hands far too steady for genuine shock. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, where a man performed shock so convincingly that even I, Hercule Poirot, was momentarily deceived. He had rehearsed in mirrors for days, practicing the widening of eyes, the dropping of the jaw, and the exact tremor in his voice. The family gathered around him, and believing every sob amid the scent of fresh lilies and cigar smoke. But he made one fatal error. When the will was mentioned, he reached for his cigarette case with perfectly steady hands. A man truly shattered by sudden death does not have such control. The body betrays what the face rehearses. The little grey cells understand this psychology beneath the performance, the small physical tells that no actor can fully suppress. In that case, the steady hands exposed premeditated murder disguised as surprised inheritance grief. He had played the grieving nephew for weeks, but the body knew the truth even when the face lied so elegantly. Similarly, here at Highclere Hall, Gerald's steadiness in crisis suggests calculation rather than raw loss. The truth. Therefore, this young man knew far more about the financial strains than he first admitted. His grief is mere costume, not genuine feeling. You see it now, no? The theatre begins to crumble. The discovery of the burned letter shifted the spotlight onto the Langfords. Captain Victor's military poise strained when questioned about the business partnership. His wife Beatrice's loyalty performance showed small cracks as she avoided her husband's eyes. Silk rustled as she shifted on the velvet chaise. The faint floral notes of her Chanel perfume, mixing with the strong coffee, served to ease tensions. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch the quick glance between husband and wife? This actor plays loyal friend, but observe the eyes. Where is the warmth of true friendship? Clara Langley's helpful secretary role faced pressure when staff recalled her working late with Sir Reginald on disputed accounts. Her soft kid gloves twisted tighter in her lap, fingers betraying nerves her calm voice tried to hide. Dr. Crowe maintained professional detachment, yet his sandalwood cologne seemed stronger as he warmed his hands repeatedly by the crackling fire. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how Clara's hands tremble while claiming perfect loyalty. Ask yourself, why does the doctor glance so often toward the widow when alibis are re-examined? The tension rises. Someone will break character soon. Lady Evelyn's grieving widow act continued in the drawing room, but the dry handkerchief and composed posture told a different story. The cold terrace air seeped in through slightly opened French windows, contrasting the warm fire glow and hot coffee on the tables. Crystal glasses from the previous night's champagne still stood untouched, their smooth surfaces catching the chandelier's tinkling light. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform such flawless innocence? Too perfect. Too rehearsed. Truth stumbles while lies flow smooth. We approach the final act. Have you identified the true performer yet? Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands as he paced the parquet floor. He adjusted his magnificent moustache thoughtfully, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction at the emerging cracks. The distant piano music had stopped, leaving only the grandfather clock's steady chime and the rain's gentle rhythm on the windows. Reflection. In this first act at Highclere Hall, we witness how greed performs as filial duty and loyalty masks deeper resentments. Humans wear masks because society's elegant stage demands them. Grief must appear with shaking shoulders and linen handkerchiefs. Love must look selfless amid Art Deco splendor and hothouse roses. Why reveal raw hate or financial desperation when a polished performance secures inheritance or preserves reputation? The psychology runs deep. Fear of exposure drives the act, yet the body rebels with small betrayals. Dry eyes in supposed sorrow, steady hands in claimed shock, glances that dart too quickly. This echoes the case of the Veiled Lady, where a woman performed perfect widowhood so flawlessly that even experienced detectives overlooked her as the killer. She wore black silk gowns that rustled dramatically, dabbed at imaginary tears with crisp linen, while surrounded by the scent of lilies and champagne toasts. Her voice stayed hushed and trembling, amid cigar smoke and wood smoke from the drawing-room fire. Yet Poirot noted her perfume never shifted to morning scents, and her hands arranged flowers with unnatural symmetry even in supposed shock. She had rehearsed the role nightly before mirrors, but genuine sorrow disrupts such order and method. The body knows what the face denies. Universally, deception thrives because truth is messy and unpredictable, while performances can be polished to perfection. But every actor eventually forgets their lines. The tremor in the voice, the uncontrolled glance, the physical tell that slips through. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. Watch not only the grand gestures of grief or loyalty, but the quiet moments when the spotlight dims and no one believes they are still performing. The first mask cracked. More would follow. Poirot drew himself up to his full height, though still small, and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. The warm drawing room felt heavier now, fire warmth battling the chill night air creeping from the terrace. Fresh flowers on the mantel released their sweet scent, mixing with the fading coffee aroma. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. Poirot gathered the suspects once more in the drawing room as afternoon light faded into early evening shadows. The crystal chandelier tinkled softly overhead, while a fresh fire crackled in the grate, spreading warm orange glow across polished mahogany and velvet curtains. The air grew thick with the mingled scents of strong continental coffee, lingering Worth perfume, sandalwood cologne, and faint wood smoke from the logs. Rain continued its steady patter against the tall windows, a constant backdrop to the unfolding drama. He began to pressure each actor in turn, testing their alibis like fragile scripts. Lady Evelyn sat rigidly on the silk-upholstered chaise, her linen handkerchief now crumpled in her lap. "I told you. I had a headache and retired early," she repeated, voice strained. Yet when pressed on the exact timing, her shoulders no longer shook with the same rehearsed grief. The performance of the grieving widow started to show visible cracks. "Observe this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre?" The mask slips. Did you catch how her words hesitate now? Too perfect yesterday. Today, the lines begin to falter. Young Gerald paced near the French windows, rough tweed jacket rumpled, bringing in the chill night air from the terrace. Poirot confronted him with the gambling debts and the burned letter fragment. "You claim you were reading in your room, yet staff heard footsteps near the library after 11, Poirot noted. Gerald's hands trembled as he reached for his coffee cup, the hot liquid nearly spilling. His steady composure from earlier had vanished. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how this young man's hands betray him now. Ask yourself, why does the dutiful son suddenly forget his rehearsed calm?" Miss Clara Langley stood by the bookcase, soft kid gloves twisting tightly between her fingers. When questioned about the disputed accounts and her late-night work with Sir Reginald, Her helpful secretary mask grew brittle. "I only typed what he dictated," she insisted, but her voice rose sharply. The crystal glass of water beside her remained untouched, her fingers leaving faint marks on the smooth surface. The careful observer will notice how helpfulness turns defensive under pressure. Consider the psychology. What role does this woman need to play when her secrets surface? Dr. Alistair Crowe warmed his hands repeatedly by the fire, sandalwood cologne growing stronger in the warm room. Poirot pressed him on the cyanide access and the exact placement of his medical bag. "Anyone could have taken it," the doctor repeated, but his professional detachment cracked when the affair hints emerged. A quick, nervous glance toward Lady Evelyn revealed more than words. Watch this actor play the calm physician. Oh, but observe the eyes. Where is the steady confidence now? If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform such innocence when the script fails? Captain Victor Langford and his wife Beatrice sat close together, their synchronized bridge alibi facing direct challenge. "We played until midnight exactly," the captain insisted, military bearing stiffening. Yet when Poirot pointed out the 10-minute gap in timelines, supported by the grandfather clock and champagne service records, Beatrice's velvet gown rustled as she shifted uncomfortably. Their mutual confirmations no longer flowed smoothly. The tension rises in this warm drawing room. Someone will break character soon. We approach the moment when rehearsed lines cannot hold. Lady Evelyn's widow performance grew brittle as Poirot circled back to her argument with the victim. Her silk gown whispered with each agitated movement, the floral Worth perfume now clashing with the bitter edge in her voice. Gerald avoided everyone's gaze, his earlier pacing turning restless on the parquet floor. Clara's kid gloves were nearly twisted into knots. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands and adjusted his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. He arranged a few scattered crystal decanters symmetrically on the side table, green eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The distant piano had fallen silent, leaving only the fire's crackle, the rain on windows, and the soft chime of the grandfather clock marking time. Rehearsed lines began to falter under the spotlight of truth. Alibis that once fit perfectly now showed clear gaps and contradictions. Doctor. Crowe's medical certainty wavered as questions about his close friendship with the widow intensified. The Langfords exchanged glances that carried hidden strain rather than unity. "If you were the murderer, how would you keep your performance intact when every small detail is examined?" "Truth needs no rehearsal, mon ami. Lies always require perfect memory, and memory, it fails under pressure." The warm fire warmth battled the chill seeping from the terrace doors. Fresh hothouse lilies on the mantel released their sweet scent, mixing with the rich coffee and faint leather from the armchairs. Silk rustled, crystal tinkled, and footsteps grew heavier on the polished floor as the cast felt the stage closing in. Poirot drew himself up and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. "Hercule Poirot sees the script failing," he announced softly. "Why near these performances? They grow strained. The psychology reveals what words try to hide. Rehearsed lines began to falter. The script was failing." Chapter 5. The mask slips. The drawing room at Highclere Hall felt heavier as evening deepened, the crystal chandelier casting golden light over the assembled cast. A fresh fire crackled warmly in the grate, sending the scents of wood smoke and strong continental coffee drifting through the air. Rain tapped insistently against the windows while Poirot prepared for the major confrontation. The stage was primed for a decisive unmasking. Poirot turned his full attention to Dr. Alistair Crowe, the family physician whose calm professionalism had held firm until now. Evidence of the secret affair with Lady Evelyn had surfaced through partially burned letters found earlier. The doctor sat near the marble mantel, sandalwood cologne mixing with the floral Worth perfume of the widow beside him. "Tell me again about your medical bag and the cyanide," Poirot said quietly but firmly. Dr. Crowe's face tightened, hands clenching on the arms of his leather chair. "I have explained it already. This is outrageous," he protested, voice rising. Yet the professional mask began to fracture as Poirot revealed notes showing the affair had lasted months. Lady Evelyn's silk gown rustled sharply as she reached for her husband's hand in vain. "Watch this performance carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre?" The mask slips. Did you catch the sudden tremble in the doctor's voice? Too rehearsed before. Now real feeling pushes through, pushes. The confrontation intensified when Poirot placed the charred letter fragments on the polished mahogany table. "These speak of love, of resentment towards Sir Reginald, and of plans made in secret," he stated. Dr. Crow's composure shattered completely. His shoulders slumped, and a raw cry escaped him. "She deserved better than that cold, controlling man. I only wanted to free her." The emotional breakdown revealed hate long masked as loyal friendship and medical concern. You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the calm physician collapses when the spotlight turns harsh. Ask yourself, what role did this man need to play to hide his obsession? Lady Evelyn's grieving widow act crumbled alongside her lover's. Her dry linen handkerchief fell uselessly to the floor as genuine panic replaced performed sorrow. "Oh, it was never meant to end this way," she whispered, voice breaking. The Worth perfume seemed heavier now in the warm room, clashing with the bitter truth emerging. The careful observer will notice how love performs as indifference until the mask falls. If you were hiding guilt, how would you maintain innocence when the body betrays every lie? The tension peaks. Someone's true face emerges at last. Clara Langley watched the scene with wide eyes, her soft kid gloves forgotten in her lap. Gerald Harrington stopped pacing, his rough tweed jacket suddenly seeming too heavy. The Langfords exchanged horrified glances, their synchronized loyalty now exposed as self-preservation. Crystal glasses on the side table caught the firelight, their smooth surfaces reflecting the unfolding drama. Poirot made an expressive gesture with his small hands and tilted his egg-shaped head. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he adjusted his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "The psychology. It is everything," he murmured. Performed calm hid terror. Helpfulness masked calculation. The director method. The performance. Dr. Crow plays the shocked, helpful doctor, speaking with professional detachment while warming his hands by the fire. The tell. But observe. His hands now shake violently, and he reaches for the brandy decanter too desperately when confronted with the letters. A truly innocent man does not grasp for alcohol in such moments. The psychology. I recall the case of the Egyptian tomb, where a seemingly devoted assistant performed loyalty so perfectly that no one suspected him of poisoning his employer for love and money. He dabbed at dry eyes, spoke in hushed tones amid the scent of exotic perfumes and cigar smoke, and maintained perfect alibis. Yet his one error was the steady way he poured medicine when the victim fell ill. Steady hands that knew exactly what poison would do. The body cannot lie when emotion is real. Genuine grief or shock disrupts precision. Here, Dr. Crow's over-helpfulness and sudden breakdown reveal the same pattern. Obsession masked as friendship, murder disguised as mercy. The truth. Therefore, this doctor knew the cyanide's effect intimately because he administered it. His calm was costume. You see it now, non? The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. But the major revelation hit when Poirot connected the timeline. The 10-minute gap in the bridge game had allowed Dr. Crow to slip into the library, administer the poison in the brandy, and lock the door from inside using a duplicate key later discarded. Lady Evelyn had provided the opportunity by distracting the others with conversation. Real hatred and desperate love had driven the act, not mere financial gain. The warm drawing room suddenly felt colder despite the fire. Chill night air seeped from the terrace doors as rain intensified on the windows. The distant grandfather clock chimed heavily, marking the moment of truth. Silk rustled, velvet shifted, and footsteps grew hesitant on the parquet floor. If you were the murderer, how long could you sustain the performance before the little tells accumulated? Truth needs no script. It simply is. Dr. Crow buried his face in his hands, the emotional breakdown complete. Lady Evelyn wept openly now, real tears at last, though born of fear rather than grief. The other suspects sat stunned, their own smaller masks slipping in the wake of the exposure. Poirot drew himself up and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve. He arranged the letter fragments symmetrically on the table with precise movements. Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre, he said softly. The spotlight of truth has shone. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. The mask had fallen. The true face emerged. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. The evening deepened at Highclere Hall, and Poirot drew the remaining cast into the library, the very scene of the crime, where the air still carried the faint, bitter almond trace beneath leather, the wood smoke, and fading hothouse lilies. Velvet curtains were drawn against the rain-lashed windows, and a single lamp cast dramatic shadows across polished mahogany and crystal decanters. The grandfather clock ticked steadily, its chimes echoing like distant applause now silenced. Behind the public performances, the true backstage of relationships began to emerge. Past secrets spilled forth as Poirot methodically revealed hidden connections. Sir Reginald's will contained a surprising codicil favouring Clara Langley with a substantial bequest for loyal service, explaining her late-night work and the disputed accounts. Captain Langford and his wife Beatrice owed the victim enormous gambling debts, their bridge game alibi masking desperate financial pressure. Gerald's heavy losses at cards had led him to borrow secretly from his father's enemies, creating motives layered like curtains. Dr. Crow and Lady Evelyn's affair was no fleeting romance, but a carefully concealed obsession spanning 2 years. Burned letters recovered from the fireplace spoke of plans to free Evelyn from her husband's control. The doctor had quietly supplied medicines that could mimic symptoms, while Lady Evelyn distracted guests during the fatal window. Their love had performed as polite friendship in public, yet backstage it burned with resentment and greed. Watch this carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or theatre? The mask slips. Did you catch how loyalty performed as unity while hiding deep financial betrayal? Behind every curtain, secrets wait. Clara's helpful secretary role concealed quiet resentment over years of underpayment and overlooked contributions. She had typed the very documents that exposed the Langfords' debts. Gerald's dutiful son act hid a young man drowning in vice, his steady hands earlier now explained by calculated inheritance hopes. Each relationship carried hidden threads, love twisted into obsession, friendship into resentment, loyalty into resentment. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the elegant surface of Highclere hid such tangled motives. Ask yourself, what secrets would you keep behind your own curtain if fortune and freedom depended on performance? The Langfords' synchronized stories crumbled further when staff recalled heated arguments overheard before the bridge game. Beatrice's Chanel perfume could not mask the strain in her voice as she admitted the pressure her husband faced. Dr. Crow sat broken, his sandalwood cologne now mixed with the sharp scent of fear sweat. Lady Evelyn's silk gown seemed to weigh heavier, her Worth perfume no longer elegant, but cloying in the confined space. The tension that had built through strained rehearsals now gave way to raw exposure. Crystal glasses stood untouched, their smooth surfaces reflecting fractured faces. The fire crackled low, offering fire warmth against the chill night air seeping under the doors. Rain drummed harder on the windows, underscoring the revelations like dramatic percussion. If you were hiding guilt, how would you perform innocence once the backstage is lit? Too many masks, too many forgotten lines. The psychology reveals what elegant performances tried to conceal. Reflection. Behind the curtains of Highclere Hall, we see how motives twist like shadows on velvet. Humans wear masks not merely to deceive others, but to survive the roles society assigns: grieving widow, loyal friend, dutiful son, devoted physician. Greed performs as grief, obsession as helpfulness, resentment as unity. Why do we hide? Because raw truth, hate, fear, desperate love would shatter the Art Deco facade of country house weekends, champagne toasts, and polished conversation. The psychology is universal. The mask protects status, fortune, and self-image, yet it exhausts the wearer. The body grows tired of lying. Small tells emerge like slips in a long rehearsal. This echoes the tragic affair in the case of the missing banker, where passengers on a luxury train performed as polite strangers while bound by conspiracy. One woman played the indifferent widow with perfect grace amid cigar smoke, leather seats, and the rhythmic clatter of rails. Her silk gowns rustled elegantly, her laughter rang at the right moments, and her eyes showed only mild concern when the body was discovered. Yet, Poirot noted her hands arranged luggage too symmetrically, and her perfume never shifted with genuine mourning. She had rehearsed the role in her compartment, practicing expressions before a small mirror. But genuine shock disrupts symmetry and scent. The little grey cells pierced the performance. Her mask hid not sorrow, but relief mixed with calculated gain from the murder she helped orchestrate with her lover. The confined stage of the train made every interaction a tightrope act, alibis overlapping like shared scripts until one small physical tell exposed the entire web. Universally, hidden motives fester until the spotlight forces revelation. Secrets rarely stay backstage forever. They leak through glances, tremors, and forgotten lines. Theatrical wisdom for you, listener. The most dangerous performances are those we maintain longest, for they demand the greatest effort, and therefore produce the clearest cracks when truth demands its entrance. Every elegant facade eventually reveals the messy reality beneath. Behind every curtain, a secret. Every secret, a motive. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. He adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision, green eyes gleaming as the final connections locked into place. The warm library felt smaller now, the fire's glow battling the cold draft from the terrace. Fresh lilies on a side table released their sweet scent, mingling with fading coffee and leather bindings. Clara sat straighter, her kid gloves finally still. Gerald's restless pacing slowed as inherited guilt settled upon him. The Langfords no longer touched, their united front dissolved. Dr. Crow and Lady Evelyn avoided each other's eyes, their once secret love now exposed as poison. The backstage had been fully lit. Relationships once hidden in shadows stood naked under Poirot's direction. What had seemed a simple suicide now revealed itself as a meticulously staged drama of love, money, and betrayal. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged the charred letter fragments symmetrically on the desk. Hercule Poirot sees the full stage now, he murmured. The public performances were convincing, but behind the curtain lay the true play. Behind every curtain, a secret. Every secret, a motive. Chapter 7. The Final Act. The entire cast was assembled in the drawing room of Highclere Hall as night fully claimed the estate. The crystal chandelier glowed warmly overhead, its tinkling light dancing across polished mahogany tables and velvet curtains. A strong fire crackled in the grate, filling the air with wood smoke, the rich aroma of fresh continental coffee, and the lingering floral notes of Worth and Chanel perfumes. Rain drummed steadily against the windows while the grandfather clock chimed 9. Marking the moment of revelation. Poirot stood before them like a master director commanding his stage. He drew himself up to his full, modest height, adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision, and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he surveyed the suspects, each still clinging to fragments of their performances. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice clear and theatrical. You have each performed for Poirot, some truthfully, some not. Let us review the performances, shall we? Lady Evelyn Harrington sat rigidly on the silk-upholstered chaise, her linen handkerchief now forgotten in her lap. "Lady Evelyn, you played the grieving widow with technical perfection," Poirot continued. "The dabs at dry eyes, the shaking shoulders, the trembling voice. But the grief, it was costume. No real tears fell. Your handkerchief remained dry. You argued with your husband that night, and your secret affair with the doctor provided both motive and opportunity. You distracted the bridge players while the fatal dose was administered. Observe this performance, mon ami. Was it convincing? The mask slips when real panic replaces rehearsed sorrow." Young Gerald shifted uncomfortably in his rough tweed jacket, the chill from the terrace doors brushing his face. "Gerald, you performed the shocked and dutiful air," Poirot said. "Yet innocent heirs do not keep such steady hands when speaking of sudden death. Your gambling debts were heavy. You hoped for quick inheritance, and your argument with your father the previous day planted seeds of resentment. Your alibi relied on the other's silence. You watch with Poirot, no? Where do you see how the young man's composure cracks under the spotlight? Ask yourself, why did grief never truly reach his eyes?" Miss Clara Langley clutched her soft kid gloves tightly, her face pale. "Clara, your role was the loyal and helpful secretary," Poirot addressed her. "Yet loyal secretaries do not hide financial ledgers that expose others' debts. You knew of the codicil in the will that favoured you. Your late-night work gave you knowledge, but not the hands that delivered the poison. The careful observer will notice how helpfulness masked quiet ambition. If you were hiding guilt, how would you play the innocent bystander?" Captain Victor Langford and his wife Beatrice sat close, but no longer touching, their velvet and military bearings strained. "Langfords, you both performed the loyal friends and bridge partners," Poirot continued. "Loyalty does not lie about exact timings or hide massive debts owed to the victim. Your synchronized alibi had a convenient 10-minute gap, enough time for one of you to slip away if needed. But the true killer needed medical knowledge. Watch these actors play unity, but observe the space growing between them now. The tension peaks as the final act unfolds." Poirot turned slowly toward Dr. Alistair Crowe, who sat slumped near the marble mantel, his sandalwood cologne now overshadowed by the scent of fear. "And so we come to our leading performer, Dr. Alistair Crowe. You gave the most convincing performance of all. The shocked friend, the helpful physician, the calm professional who examined the body and confirmed cyanide. Magnifique. You spoke of impulsive suicide with such authority. You warmed your hands by the fire and offered medical insights without hesitation." The doctor's face drained of colour. His hands trembled as he reached instinctively for a crystal glass of water. "But you made one fatal error," Poirot continued, voice rising dramatically. "One small moment when the mask slipped completely. When the body was discovered, you reached for your medical bag too calmly, too precisely, knowing exactly where the cyanide had come from, because you had taken it from your own supplies and administered it in the brandy glass. You used the 10-minute gap during the bridge game, while Lady Evelyn distracted the others. The locked door. A simple duplicate key turned from inside and later removed. Your over-helpfulness masked terror, but your steady medical explanations hid the hand that poisoned a man for love and money. The director method, final reinforcement. The performance. Dr. Crowe played the detached doctor with perfect professionalism, speaking calmly amid fire warmth and coffee aroma. The tell. But observe, his hands shook violently only when the letters were produced, and he grasped desperately for brandy he knew was safe. A truly innocent physician does not show such precise knowledge of the poison's speed and effect. The psychology. Genuine shock disrupts order. A man who has just lost a friend does not arrange his thoughts so neatly. This mirrors past cases where calculated calm betrayed the killer. The truth. Therefore, the doctor and the widow conspired together. Their love performed as friendship until the curtain rose on truth. The room fell silent except for the crackling fire and the rain on the windows. Silk rustled as Lady Evelyn buried her face in her hands. Crystal tinkled faintly as someone's glass shook. The warm drawing room suddenly felt oppressive despite the fire's glow. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged a few objects on the side table symmetrically. "The performance is over," he declared. "The curtain falls. The truth she takes her bow. Dr. Alistair Crowe and Lady Evelyn Harrington, you stand exposed as the murderers of Sir Reginald Harrington." Dr. Crowe broke completely, confessing in a broken voice how obsession and the promise of a new life had driven them to poison the brandy during the brief window of opportunity. Lady Evelyn wept real tears at last, tears of fear and regret rather than performed grief. The other suspects sat stunned, their smaller masks falling away. Gerald looked relieved, yet ashamed. Clara straightened with quiet dignity. The Langfords stared at the floor, their financial secrets now secondary to the greater crime. The spotlight of truth had shone brightly. Every actor had been reviewed, every performance analysed and found wanting, except the one truth that needed no rehearsal. Poirot drew himself up, green eyes gleaming. Hercule Poirot is not deceived by such theatre. Order and method, combined with the psychology of the human heart, always reveal the true face behind the mask. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The drawing room of Highclere Hall fell into a stunned silence after Poirot's revelation. The crystal chandelier continued its soft tinkling overhead, casting fragmented light across the polished mahogany tables and velvet curtains. The fire crackled lower now, sending faint wood smoke curling toward the ceiling, while the rich aroma of continental coffee lingered in cooling cups. Rain still pattered steadily against the windows, as if the sky itself refused to applaud. Lady Evelyn Harrington sat motionless on the silk-upholstered chaise, her Worth perfume suddenly heavy and cloying in the warm air. Real tears streamed down her face at last, no rehearsed dabs with a linen handkerchief, only raw fear and regret. Her silk gown rustled faintly as she clutched her hands together, the grieving widow mask stripped away completely, revealing a woman who had traded love for murder. Dr. Alistair Crowe slumped in his leather armchair near the marble mantel, while his sandalwood cologne mixing with the sharp scent of defeat. His hands, once steady in their medical performance, now trembled visibly as he stared at the floor. The helpful physician role had collapsed entirely. "We only wanted to be free," he whispered brokenly, the confession spilling out like a final faltering line delivered too late. "Observe the aftermath carefully, mon ami. Is this truth or the final, desperate performance? The mask has fallen completely. No more rehearsal, only consequences." Young Gerald Harrington stood near the French windows, rough tweed jacket rumpled, the chill night air from the terrace brushing his face. Relief washed over his features, mixed with shame at his own hidden motives. His steady hands from earlier interviews now fidgeted nervously with a crystal glass. The dutiful son performance had been exposed as self-serving, yet inheritance would still come, tainted by the theatre of crime. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the young man's shoulders relax even as guilt settles. Ask yourself, what small part did his resentment play in allowing this tragedy to unfold?" Miss Clara Langley rose slowly from her seat by the bookcase, soft kid gloves finally still in her lap. Her helpful secretary mask had hidden quiet ambition, but now quiet dignity took its place. She looked at Poirot with new respect, the codicil in the will no longer a secret weapon, but a bittersweet reminder. The strong coffee on the side table had gone cold, mirroring the sudden chill that settled over the room despite the fire's warmth. The careful observer will notice how innocence, once wrongly suspected, now stands straighter. If you were one of the supporting players, how would you face the curtain call when the leading roles crumble? Captain Victor Langford and his wife Beatrice sat apart for the first time that evening, their synchronized loyalty performance shattered. Victor's military bearings sagged, while Beatrice's velvet gown seemed to weigh heavier on her shoulders. Their financial debts to the victim now felt trivial beside the greater crime revealed. Chanel perfume and faint cigar smoke from earlier lingered, but the air tasted bitter, like the sweet liqueur they had sipped the night before, now turned to ash. The tension that had built through strained rehearsals finally broke. No more missed cues or forgotten lines, only the heavy reality of justice beginning its slow machinery. Footsteps echoed on the parquet floor as the local inspector and his men entered to make the formal arrests, their boots leaving faint marks on the polished surface. Poirot moved among the cast with quiet authority, tilting his egg-shaped head thoughtfully. He adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "Hercule Poirot has directed this drama to its end," he said softly. "The performances are over. What remains is truth and justice. Watch how each actor reacts when the spotlight dims. Some shrink, others straighten. Greed that performed as grief now faces its true cost. Love that masked obsession stands exposed and broken." Lady Evelyn was helped to her feet, her once elegant posture now fragile. Dr. Crow rose with heavy steps, and the fire warmth no longer reaching the cold reality in his eyes. The Langfords exchanged one final hollow glance before following the police. Gerald remained behind momentarily, staring at the locked library door as if seeing the stage for the first time. The warm drawing room, once filled with champagne corks and distant piano music, now felt emptied of its glamour. Fresh hothouse lilies on the mantel released their sweet scent into air grown heavy with wood smoke and fading cologne. Crystal glasses stood untouched, their smooth surfaces reflecting faces stripped of all pretense. Silk and velvet rustled one last time as the guilty were led away. If you were hiding guilt, how would the curtain call feel when applause never comes? Truth triumphs because it needs no rehearsal. Lies always exhaust the actor in the end. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged a few scattered objects symmetrically on the side table. His green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction, though no smile touched his lips. The psychology of the human heart had once again proven stronger than any performed role. The inspector nodded respectfully to Poirot before escorting the prisoners. Highclere Hall, once the elegant stage for a weekend house party, now bore the weight of its transformed reality. The actors had played their parts, some convincingly, others poorly. But the final review belonged to truth alone. No applause echoed through the rooms. No champagne corks popped in celebration. Only the steady tick of the grandfather clock and the soft rain on the windows marked the passage into justice. The curtain call came. No applause, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show, dawn broke gently over Highclere Hall the following morning, softening the Art Deco lines of the great house with pale light. The rain had ceased, leaving the terrace cold and damp, while inside the drawing room the fire had burned low, its last embers releasing faint wood smoke. Fresh hothouse lilies on the mantel still held their sweet scent, mingling with the lingering aroma of strong continental coffee served at breakfast. The crystal chandelier hung dim now, its tinkling silenced, as the stage emptied of its dramatic players. Lady Evelyn Harrington and Dr. Alistair Crowe had been taken into custody during the night. Their once elegant performances lay in ruins, her Worth perfume and his sandalwood cologne no longer masking the bitter truth of conspiracy and murder. Lady Evelyn, stripped of her grieving widow mask, faced the reality of lost fortune and impending trial. The doctor, whose helpful professionalism had hidden obsession, walked away in handcuffs with shoulders bowed, his medical bag forever tainted. Young Gerald Harrington remained at the hall, inheriting the estate but forever changed. His rough tweed jacket seemed heavier as he stood on the cold terrace, staring across the grounds. The dutiful sun roll had crumbled, exposing his gambling debts and selfish hopes. Yet the shock of truth forced a slow reformation. He spoke quietly of selling parts of the property to clear honest debts and rebuild without the shadow of his father's death. "You watch with Poirot, non? You see how the young heir's restless pacing has slowed into thoughtful stillness. Ask yourself, can inheritance heal when it carries the stain of performed grief? Miss Clara Langley packed her notebooks in the morning room, her soft kid gloves now neatly folded beside crisp linen napkins. The helpful secretary mask had hidden quiet ambition, but the revealed codicil brought both relief and unease. She accepted a modest settlement from Gerald and planned a new life in London, free from late-night dictation and hidden resentments. Her posture straightened as she left the room, footsteps lighter on the polished parquet. Observe this transformation carefully, mon ami. Is it truth or a new performance? The mask of loyalty falls away, revealing a woman ready for her own stage. Captain Victor Langford and his wife Beatrice departed early, their synchronized loyalty shattered, and Victor's military bearing had lost its rigid confidence. Beatrice's velvet gown rustled with finality as they climbed into their motor car. Their massive debts to the victim would be settled through painful honesty rather than further deception. The Chanel perfume and faint cigar smoke that once marked their presence faded with them, leaving only the chill morning air. The careful observer will notice how financial pressure that once performed as friendship now yields to genuine regret. If you were one of the supporting players, how would you rewrite your role after the curtain falls? The setting itself began its slow transformation. Highclere Hall, once the elegant stage for tragedy and rehearsed alibis, grew quieter. Maids moved through the rooms with soft footsteps, removing champagne glasses and straightening velvet curtains. The locked library door stood open now, its leather bindings and crystal decanters no longer props in a murder drama, but simple furnishings awaiting peace. Fresh flowers were replaced, and the bitter almond trace finally dissipated. Poirot lingered in the drawing room, tilting his egg-shaped head as he surveyed the emptied stage. He adjusted his magnificent moustache thoughtfully and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. "The theatre of crime empties slowly," he murmured. "But the lessons, they linger in the air like perfume that refuses to fade. Watch how the grand house shifts from crime scene to quiet estate. The spotlight dims, yet its glow reveals new possibilities for those who remain. Greed that performed as grief has been exposed. Love that masked obsession has been judged." Gerald approached Poirot on the terrace, the cold air sharp against the warmth of the departing fire inside. "I thought I wanted the inheritance above all," he admitted, voice steady but humbled. "Now I see the cost of wearing masks." Poirot nodded, green eyes gleaming with quiet satisfaction. The young man's reformation had begun, not through applause, but through the harsh light of truth. Clara paused at the doorway before leaving, offering Poirot a genuine smile free of calculated helpfulness. The Langfords drove away without looking back, their car's engine fading into the distance like the final notes of a melancholy piano piece. The warm drawing room, once filled with tension and rehearsed lines, now held only the soft rustle of silk drapes and the distant chime of the grandfather clock. If you were hiding guilt, how would the morning after feel when no audience remains to applaud your performance? Truth does not rehearse, and neither does redemption when it finally arrives. Poirot smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and arranged a few scattered crystal glasses symmetrically on the side table. He drew himself up, small but commanding, as the sun rose higher, chasing away the chill night air. The psychology of revelation had worked its quiet magic once again. Masks removed, true faces allowed to breathe. The hall's transformation mirrored the characters, from a glittering stage of Art Deco elegance and weekend glamour to a place of honest reckoning. No more locked doors hiding cyanide glasses, no more alibis woven like fragile scripts. Only open windows letting in fresh air and the promise of new beginnings for those willing to face the lessons. Gerald stood taller as he re-entered the house, ready to manage the estate with clearer eyes. Clara's departure carried quiet hope rather than resentment. Even the Langfords, though burdened, stepped toward honesty instead of further deception. Justice had begun its work, slow and inexorable. Poirot took one final look around the drawing room. The fire had died to embers, yet its warmth lingered in memory. The scents of lilies, coffee and perfume would fade, but the psychological truths uncovered would endure. The theatre emptied. The lessons remained. Chapter 10. Poirot. Reviews. The performance. Hercule. Poirot sat comfortably in his London apartment several days after the events at Highclere Hall. A small fire crackled gently in the grate, spreading warm firelight and the faint scent of wood smoke across the room. He sipped a hot cup of tisane, its herbal aroma mixing pleasantly with the rich smell of fresh continental coffee prepared by his manservant. Outside, the chill autumn air pressed against the windows, but inside, velvet curtains and polished mahogany created a cocoon of order and calm. Poirot adjusted his magnificent moustache with precision and smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve, his egg-shaped head tilted in quiet reflection. News of the character's fates had reached him. Lady Evelyn Harrington and Dr. Alistair Crowe awaited trial, their conspiracy laid bare. Gerald had begun reforming the estate with honest resolve, selling portions to clear debts without further deception. Clara Langley had settled into a new position in London, free from hidden resentments. The Langfords faced financial reckoning, but chose transparency over more performed loyalty. The theatre had emptied, yet its lessons lingered. Why do people perform rather than reveal truth? In the elegant drawing rooms of Highclere Hall, masks were worn for greed, for love twisted into obsession, for fear of losing status. Society demands polished roles. Grieving widow with dry eyes and shaking shoulders, loyal friend with steady alibis, dutiful son with measured pacing. The psychology is clear. Raw emotion is messy. It disrupts symmetry. It forgets lines. So actors rehearse grief, loyalty, innocence, until the body betrays them with trembling hands, avoided glances or too perfect composure. You watch with Poirot, no? Consider how greed performed as filial duty while love masked cold calculation. Ask yourself, what mask do you wear in your own daily theatre? This case reminded Poirot strongly of the Ackroyd affair. In that earlier drama, a man performed shock so convincingly that even Poirot was momentarily deceived. He rehearsed before mirrors, the widening eyes, the dropped jaw, the tremor in the voice, amid scents of lilies and cigar smoke in a quiet country house. His hands remained perfectly steady when reaching for his cigarette case, a fatal tell. A truly shocked man does not have such control. The body knows truth even when the face lies with elegance. Here at Highclere, Dr. Crowe's calm medical explanations and steady handling of the cyanide mirrored that same error. His over-helpfulness masked terror. Mahis' precise knowledge of the poison's speed revealed the hand that administered it. Lady Evelyn's technically perfect grief lacked moisture in the eyes and sincerity in the heart. Both cases showed how rehearsal exhausts the actor, while truth needs no script. The masks society demands are many. In Art Deco elegance, silk gowns rustling, crystal chandeliers tinkling, champagne corks popping, raw hate must dress as loyalty, desperation as confidence, obsession as indifference. People wear them to protect fortune, reputation, and fragile self-image. Yet guilt always betrays the performer. Steady hands in crisis, dry eyes in sorrow, synchronized alibis that flow too smoothly. These are the slips when the spotlight of truth shines. The little grey cells understand this. The psychology beneath the performance is everything. Order and method expose what elegant theatre tries to hide. Observe the universal pattern, mon ami. In every theatre of crime, actors eventually forget their lines. The body rebels against prolonged deception. A tremor appears. A glance darts too quickly. A hand reaches too steadily for comfort. Truth triumphs because it is simple and unrehearsed. Performances require perfect memory, perfect control, and memory fails under pressure. That is why the curtain always falls on the guilty. Poirot set down his tisane and made an expressive gesture with his small hands. His green eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he arranged a few objects on the table symmetrically. The warm room contrasted the chill outside, much like the warm drawing room at Highclere had hidden cold motives. Fresh flowers in a vase released a gentle scent, while reminding him of the hothouse lilies that once adorned the mantel during the fatal weekend. The psychology of revelation is profound. When the spotlight turns harsh, masks crack because they were never the true face. Dr. Crow's breakdown revealed hate, long disguised as friendship. Lady Evelyn's real tears came only when fear replaced performance. Gerald's reformation began when performed grief gave way to honest shame. Each transformation proved that truth, once revealed, frees those willing to accept it, even if justice brings pain. Why does truth ultimately triumph over performance? Because performance is exhausting. It demands constant vigilance. The actor grows tired, the mask slips. Truth simply exists, steady, unadorned, needing no applause. In the end, the human heart prefers honesty when the curtain falls and no audience remains to judge the show. Theatrical wisdom for you, dear listener. Watch the small moments when no one believes they are still on stage. The tremor in the voice, the steady hand that should shake, the eyes that avoid contact. These are where the real drama unfolds. The theatre of crime has one unchanging truth. Every actor eventually forgets their lines. The body cannot lie forever. Poirot drew himself up, though small in stature, and tilted his egg-shaped head. He touched his moustache thoughtfully one final time. Outside, London traffic hummed faintly, a reminder that new stages awaited. Highclere Hall would slowly return to peace, its lessons carried by those who survived the drama. Until the next theatre of crime, mes amis. Poirot watches always.